It's time for the Las Vegas Sports Line, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
And here we go, a brand new week. It is March Madness in full force now, as the NCAA tournament field is set. Plenty to talk about on a daily basis now, no question about that. I'm Dave Cokin. Marco DAngelo is here. All right, Platinum's our producer. It's our Monday show, which means Chuck Esposito from Sunset Station and Station Casinos is joining us. Chuck, a great weekend of action, and now we get to the real deal. The tournament brackets are all set, and let the action begin.
Absolutely. It's yay Sportsbooks first, guys. I mean, the atmosphere of the conference tournaments was great. Only anticipate what the crowds are going to be like for the big dance and everything this week. I mean, it's kind of the calm before the storm today, but all the numbers are up, regions are up, to win it all is up. All the fun stuff is just waiting to happen, guys.
And the most fun is a $50,000 guaranteed first prize contest.
It is. It's our last man standing contest, same format as in college football and pro football, $25 entry fee, 4 entries, gets you the 5th entry free, $50,000 guaranteed. And I think the cool thing is that the format is just like the tourney. You win on Thursday, you move on to Friday. You win on Friday, you move on to Saturday, and so on. But if you lose, you're out. So it's a great contest, guys. Really, really popular. A lot of fun. The guests love it.
Yeah, that's why you take a shot with 5 entries, actually for the price of 4. So it's only $20 a shot when you're doing it that way. And, you know, those real tough games, those are the ones where you maybe put it in the opposite side on 1 entry just to make sure you've got something rolling into the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many guests do that, and if you're fortunate enough that you've got a number of cards that are live and moving through, especially that first weekend, it does give guests an opportunity to hedge and some wiggle room and to maneuver to put themselves in kind of a win-win situation if possible.
Chuck, it's Monday after the seeding, and everybody is by the water cooler talking about who got snubbed, who should be in, who shouldn't be. Let me go to the guy that sets the numbers. Who do you think got snubbed?
I don't think a whole lot of teams got snubbed. I thought maybe a little bit, Indiana. I didn't think when they showed that TCU was one of the last teams they considered, I didn't think TCU belonged. I thought overall this year there wasn't quite that same, wow, I can't believe this team got left out. I think more so to me is that kind of the storylines that they put together for some of these early round games are what kind of caught my eye. I mean, you think about, the play-in game on Wednesday between St. John's and Arizona State. You've got Bobby Hurley against Chris Mullen. And if Bobby Hurley happens to win this game, who do they play? Buffalo, the school that he left, and the assistant coach that he hired. In the first game on Thursday, the very first game to kick it all off, you've got Minnesota and Louisville. And it happens to be Richard Pitino against Louisville. Those were some of the things that kind of stood out to me, guys.
I think the one that, had they gotten left out, the barking would have been loudest on Belmont. And I think they did a good job to get Belmont in. And, if it meant TCU out, I'm fine with that. I think they did a very good job getting that second Ohio Valley bid to Belmont in what was a really good year for the Ohio Valley Conference with 2 outstanding teams and a couple others who weren't far away from that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you had, when you had St. Louis win, and then you had St. Mary's win, and you had some teams that may not have gotten in. I don't think St. Louis would have. No. It kind of caused the committee to kind of reshuffle some things. But overall, I thought they did a really good job. I liked the explanations yesterday. I didn't see one team, again, that really stood out to me that got snubbed. I think they did a really good job. For me, guys, I think the Midwest and the South region are 2 really tough regions. I think there's a lot of parity in those, and you can make a case for several teams to come out of those regions. I think the West, again, for me, is the weakest one. I think you look at Gonzaga, who I really thought Michigan State should have been a number 1. And I think you look at Gonzaga, the 4th number 1, getting to play out west. Michigan, maybe the 4th number 2. I actually like Texas Tech and Florida State more than I like the first 2 teams in that region. And I think in the East, I try to look for a sleeper or somebody outside of Duke. I just can't find one, guys. But I do think the South and the Midwest are the two toughest regions for my money.
You know, Duke is Duke getting not all the money, obviously, but are they getting the most play in terms of the futures? I think the majority, or at least the plurality, feels Duke is the team to beat in this tournament.
Well, I agree with you on that statement that they are the team to beat. But when you say that the most action, anytime, in any sport, and I know we've all talked about this, Marco, you and I did it during football, is that a lot of times you don't see that same action on some of the favorites with lower odds. They're going to look for some value. Is it, Virginia Tech with Robinson back? They're going to look for, Florida. They got a lot of action during the course of the season. You don't always see that with the favorites. I think one of the teams that they did play this year was Virginia. I think you look at Virginia and the fact they're a much better offensive team this year than they've been in the past. I think, defensively, we always knew how good they were, but they had some question marks, on the offensive side. This year, I think it's much different than that, and they can score. So you saw some money on them in the future book as well.
You know what's interesting on Virginia? I don't trust them at all. I don't. They just don't win big games.
We saw what happened last year,
And look at the ACC tournament. I mean, I know it's not that important to win the ACC tournament. They were going to be a top seed anyway, but boy, you got to win some big games, and they can't even make it to the finals. This is the holdup on Virginia. I mean, I don't think they're going to have any problems in round one. Gardner-Webb doesn't present much of an issue. But after that team worries me. The clutch factor just isn't there with them.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But I think when you look at, the Big Ten with 8 teams in, and the ACC with 7, and the SEC in 7, just conference play for those schools alone is so rugged, where you can have the bottom teams, they get up every game. And you think about the rigors of those conference games. And I look at Virginia this year, though, with Guy and Jerome and Hunter. I think they can score more. And then I look at Gonzaga getting a number 1 seed. I just don't think their conference battles, night in and night out, are anything like what you see in the Big Ten, ACC, or SEC. So I think at least Virginia is more tested for my money than, say, Gonzaga is right now.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is that, back in November, and you got to count that, Gonzaga beat Duke, and they beat him by a lot.
They did.
And that, to me, unless Gonzaga screwed it up, they had to be a number 1 seed. Also, by the way, I think the West Coast Conference this year was really good. The bottom of the conference, Portland was atrocious. But outside of that, really no real bad team. Santa Clara maybe, but Gonzaga was good. San Diego was a good team. San Francisco slumped at the end of the year, but they were really outstanding early. I thought this was a solid West Coast Conference, and they destroyed everything in sight in that league.
No, they did. They, too, lose, in their conference against St. Mary's. But, I think that's what's great about the tournament is that the three of us can talk about it, have different opinions on who we think should be, 1, 2, 3, and 4s and break down the region. And that's what guests, love to do as well. And, it's a bunch of water cooler chatter. That's what's going to happen, guys, tomorrow night. We've got our tip-off to the tourney seminar in Club Madrid at 6 o'clock. It's free. It's open to the public. Again, I'm inviting you guys. Hope you can come out. But it's great. Brian Blessing and myself host. We've got Hammer and Hank Goldberg from ESPN, Bernie Fratto from Fox Sports Radio, Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet, and Andy Iskoe from the Gaming Today. And we make it interactive. Guests can ask questions, have fun with it, challenge these guys. And that's the kind of information and insight you're going to get, kind of what we're doing right now, guys.
Chuck, back to Virginia 1 second. I'm with you, and in a best-case scenario, I hope they just slide by Gardner-Webb,
Right.
And then set up a real sweet number because I want to see that Virginia defense go against either Mississippi or Oklahoma. It's going to be a bloodbath. I will be on Virginia in the next round. I'm telling you that right now. I like them there. And the only one that I know Gonzaga does, their body of work for the whole year deserved to be in number 1. But, if you want to make a case for anybody, Michigan State could make a case as well that they deserved a number 1.
Agreed.
They go into
I agree, Marco. I thought the same thing. I really thought when I was, the show came on that I was going to see Michigan State as a number 1. But that's what's great about it again. But I agree with you with Virginia. It's funny. I was thinking the same thing that I could see Virginia getting a little bit of a test in the first round, and then kind of getting them out of that system and out of their system and settling in a little bit. But there's so much, I think parity overall in the tournament. And you look at the fact that I think there's only 3 games Thursday and Friday that have over a 20-point favorite. Yeah. 5 years ago, there was probably at least a half a dozen or more. And 10 years ago, you were looking at double-digit games that had that big of favorites. But when you look at it now, when you look at a team out west like Buffalo, who only has 5 teams ahead of them in that region, or you look at Wofford or Utah State, these teams or these schools aren't sleepers anymore. They've got kids that have been there 3 and 4 years, and you look at the respect that they get and the fact that they can play with the big boys. I think the parity for the overall tournament is great. I like the fact that you've got schools like that we're talking about that are going to get value and get played because they're that good against some bigger schools.
Let's talk about some of the teams that are drawing action already with the numbers being posted for Thursdays and Fridays games, as well as the play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Are we seeing any teams where there's some actual sentiment so far and some potential liability for the house?
I haven't seen a lot of games run yet. We did see some play on Virginia and some on Virginia Tech as well, a little bit on Syracuse. Some initial push right away, but you're going to see so much more, guys, starting today, tomorrow. You got the play-in games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then it all kicks off on Thursday. So I expect, again, you're going to see a tremendous handle. The atmosphere in all of our race and sports books and the investment for the video display is second to none. The crowds, the atmosphere, being able to root for your favorite team against maybe 300 or 400 of your closest friends in our books makes it a cool atmosphere, that's for sure.
A couple of sides that we are seeing, at least generally, some money on early. I'll get your comments on these. You mentioned that Florida has been a popular team with the bettors throughout the season. They're playing Nevada, and the Wolfpack, it kind of looks like a lot of people are going sour on Nevada. They're just a very small favorite in that basketball game. Let's talk about them first, and whether you think that Nevada can flip the switch and start playing like they did early in the season. I'm not so sure they can.
Well, I would think maybe they pulled from last year when they made it to the 8 last year, I believe.
Well, I thought it was. What round did they get knocked out in that last basket by Loyola? Was that the Sweet 16 round?
I thought they had gone one round further, but you might be correct.
But
maybe they pulled
okay.
from that. With Martin and the outside game that they have. I thought they were a better team during the year. I think when we talked about it, I thought that their seeding was going to be better until they kind of stubbed their toe toward the end. So we'll have to wait and see. But, sometimes these teams that are tournament tested and have been there before and they can have something to pull from, they end up playing well. And I think from an experience factor, I don't think there's an older team in the tournament than Nevada.
They're older
and
than
maybe that helps them a little bit.
Chuck, how about Oregon and Wisconsin? I'll tell you what, by game day, I would not be surprised if Oregon's the favorite in this game. The way we've seen the betting so far and the way the people are jumping on the bandwagon and the fact that tournament was here, everybody got to see the dominance of Oregon. Will that have a carryover effect at the windows?
Well, they made one heck of a run. I mean, they had to make a run. They went 4 games in 4 days. I mean, they deserve to be there with the way that they played. But it's going to be fun to watch them play. I think anytime a team kind of has that swagger and gets hot and is playing good at that time, they're always a fun team.
Let's get your picks for the Final Four. Who's going to be there?
It's hard when you have 3 of the 4, top teams as ACC teams. And, I think it's hard to pick all number ones. It's hard to pick against the number ones. I think Duke is there. And this year, I know you can make a case for Carolina, but I'm going to say it's Duke, Virginia. I'm going to go and say Michigan and Kentucky are my Final Four teams, guys.
All right. That's good stuff. A lot more basketball talk coming throughout the week, but we want to concentrate on some other stuff as well with Chuck Esposito from Sunset Station Casinos, because you sent me a text or an email. I can't remember which. No, it was an email because there were attachments involved. And you've got some great stuff up for the NFL draft, These are now props that are now available, as well as some regular season NFL futures. Let's talk about the draft props first, because I think those are going to get a lot of action, and you've got a lot of good stuff involving